We're going to be doing part 2 of the Samantha Josephson murder and go a little bit more in depth. I talked before, broad strokes about the crime, the investigation, the suspect who was ultimately convicted of her murder, the parents' role in bringing Samantha's name to light, and the safety laws that have gone into place. So today is part 2, but I wanted to get a little bit more in depth with and about Samantha. So you ready to go, Jenny?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Samantha Josephson was a college student at University of South Carolina. She's originally from New Jersey. Now, Nathaniel Rowland was originally the suspect, and her killer, he lived in South Carolina. And so the details of the case was she was out with friends one evening. She wanted to leave before the group left, and she called an Uber and or Lyft, and she chose the car she went into. And what we found out through the investigation is that on camera, Nathaniel was circling that area for quite a while, almost looking for this opportunity. And so she thought one car before Nathaniel's car came up was the Uber for her. She opens the door, they say no. He quickly makes a U-turn, sees what happens, pulls up and says yes. And in her, she gets in the car. He has baby locks, so she can't get out. Unfortunately, he takes her quite far away, and her body is found the next day. So the interesting point to me of this case and why it's a really important thing, and something that is kind of a schism in what we think of as peripherally our safety, is Uber and Lyft have been an amazing business for the people who drive, and just for transportation in general. And the many times that I've taken an Uber or Lyft, especially from the airports when traveling, I never considered that could be dangerous. I just didn't think, because it's just so automated, and you just assume, and on the periphery, that you would assume that somebody who had everybody, I don't think they go through background checks. I think it's just they check their to make sure the car is in working order. But Jenny, before this case, had you ever considered that you wouldn't be safe in an Uber? I don't know, maybe you did.
Yes, I did. Not necessarily an Uber, but before Ubers were a thing, I worked and lived downtown, and I would take cabs all the time. And there was a specific cab driver I had some really scary rides with 2 nights. The same driver took me past where my turn was, and it was really scary. So
right,
yeah.
And it's funny because the times years ago when you take a cab, I always thought they were trying to just run up the bill in terms of more mileage and stuff. But you're right, especially if you're alone. Usually I was in a car with somebody, co-worker or something, but I think, hey, wait a minute, we're supposed to be back there. Or it's easier when you're from out of town and you're not that familiar, but when you're familiar and what the turn, it's incredibly scary.
Well, and the thing about running up the bill with that is I was in like all of downtown. It was like a $5 per trip in a certain area, and I was just inside that. Right. So he couldn't charge me extra because I was in that square.
Right. I think the thing, there's, of course, in all the years that the cab drivers, somebody ride share, because cabs, I have no idea how many years, but it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Is that you've heard of things happening. Maybe it's a cab driver who followed somebody home, right? So he goes and attacks her then because he knows where she lives now, maybe. But usually not the way, just because that crime of opportunity, in terms of all the things that had to go right for him to be able to get her.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and then kind of that whole thing of, now, again, I remember, if you used an Uber app, it will say, it's going to be, you know, a black sedan, blah, blah, blah. And then you can, if you want to, you can watch it travel towards you. It's 3 minutes away, 2 minutes away. And so that was the weird thing about that. She didn't have that. She just walked up to the car, opened the, you know, the first car and opened it up, which I thought that was odd, but maybe she's like,
did somebody else order her Uber maybe?
No, it says that she ordered it.
It was okay.
Yeah, it's just for whatever reason, because they can't even, you know, we'll never know, but whatever reason, she just walked up to the car instead of looking at it. And I think that's an alarm bell for me, just somebody who's traveled alone. And been in places like, I need to know. And that was like my safety to say, if it's on, you know, it means the company knows that this car is connected to me. That's, and maybe, and that's not something you think out loud. That's kind of like the safety feature, is that where his luck and, you know, happened is that she got in. Because that would be, it's like, if I saw the, you know, pretend it was the black sedan coming up, would I get into that car? Unless I'd been following it on my map to say it's here, kind of thing. And then there are times where, well, not times, but you can choose the car. You can say this person's this close or that close or whichever. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of safety. But if you're not using your phone and you just walk up to the car, that it was just the perfect timing and the perfect storm. Because if, you know, if she's thinking, what, I have to hold up my, you know, it's a black sedan I'm waiting for, pretend. But all the conditions, it was dark. He had a brown car versus black, something, you know, something like that. So that's something that is interesting. And now we know, because we've heard about this one horrific case, to double, triple check. And then we'll talk about it in a minute, how her parents said, as for her legacy, we're going to go and see if we can get a law passed, a safety law. And they did in South Carolina. New Jersey also passed a law, and the parents are trying to get a federal law passed that is called Sam's Law, which is that there has to be a decal of some sort that you can identify that it's an Uber car or a Lyft car. So something, and you would think, oh, that's so simple. Now, I do know, for a friend of mine who drives for both Uber and Lyft, they have them here in California. I don't know if they even have to have a law, but the company's just requiring it.
I know most of the ones here do. I don't know if they all do, because I don't really use them anymore, but I know I see the decals or the lights all the time everywhere. So
the interesting part about I keep saying the word interesting because it's interesting. That's why we're doing the show. But so here is Samantha, beautiful, brilliant, smart, great, you know, friend, and to everyone that she knew. But Nathaniel wasn't far off from that. And so that's where it's always going to be, in which for this show, I will always bring cases that you just think, what happened, that we'll never know. We'll never know, because that whatever, because his thing was, he was going to a university at the time, and he studied, he played basketball, and he had really just no sign of aggressive behavior. He had a little bit of criminal stuff, but it was about trying to sell something of not value. It wasn't exactly fraud, but it was a misdemeanor, but nothing on the radar that you'd say, that this guy's, you know, no one came out and said he's been fighting with people his whole life. And so that is, I'm always intrigued by that. And these are all the cases that I bring of people who are just walking around among us and just sitting there with that, that moment and that opportunity. But you have to, for what he did and the way he did it, because that's what when they started getting all of the footage from that public area, it was very clear it was his car. It was very clear it was him in the car. And then when they stopped him, once they identified the car and then they pulled him over and he ran from the police, they thought, we got something here. And you look like the guy in the car. It is your car. And now you're running from us when we try to pull you over to talk to you about it. Now, of course, the investigation, they start with it starts with, where is she? She's not around. And then that next morning, because after he had murdered her, he had placed her body a short way away from his parents' farm, because who lived out in the middle of nowhere. And then the gentleman who owned the farm next and a big lot of land, they were hunting for turkeys, and that's where they found her body. So the next morning, so the investigation starts. And so this is one of the most interesting things and intriguing things to me, is everything pointed to this guy, from him being in the car, from the cameras and the pictures and the everything. And then the fact that she was found so close to his parents' home, off on a side road in between farms, out in the middle of farms, which anybody who you live in a state that is very flat and lots and lots and lots of farms, you can go for miles and miles and miles. And so it does take a level of disbelief to think that how random that she would show up near the guy's car. The guy, it looks like he was in the car, it was his car, and now it's near his parents' house.
Yeah.
So he denies it to this day that he had nothing to do with it. And it's not up to him to prove that he didn't do it. So, he can't do that. What I'm amazed by is how much of an impact when his mother spoke, of how much they believe him. And so, I keep putting myself in that position. I'm thinking, because it's kind of as a spectator, I look and go, well, we've been taught, is he a career criminal? Does he have a big rap sheet? Does anybody say he's been angry before? All the signs that you'd think. And then wouldn't his parents see something in him? Or do the parents say, well, he just said he didn't do it, even though, and then I think, do you not see the evidence we see?
Yeah.
Because that, at some point, I think, would I have to look at my kid and go, come on, it's a mile away from the farm, and it's you in the car, and it's your license plate. And
some people don't see their kids' wrongs.
Yeah.
Like some people are blinded by, my child would never do that, even if they're horrible.
Right. And that, I think, so that's part to me is, and I hope someday we can have a forensic psychologist on. That would be really fun to say, with all of these cases, to go, all of the evidence about all the blood in his car, even the girlfriend that he had at the time was saying, what's with all the blood in the car? And then he cleaned up as best he could, but threw all of the blood that was covered in Samantha's blood, all the cleanup materials in the girlfriend's. So that's a lot of evidence pointing to.
Yeah, that's a lot of evidence.
How could Samantha's blood be on cleanup stuff in bags in your girlfriend's thing? Too much connection, right? Together.
Yeah.
And yet his mother kept saying, I just know in my heart. And unless it's just everybody just says, and maybe she does. I don't know. There's so many parents who'd say, of course my kid said he didn't do it, I'm going to stand by him no matter what. I get that part.
Yeah.
But when I watched her talk, I thought she believes this to her core. And maybe she doesn't want to see everything. I don't know. I can't talk to her, but it's an amazing testament to, yes, how far you can go with your kid. I kind of think I'm pretty pragmatic to go, all right, you know what? We'll get you a little money put on the books for you, so you can get some shampoo and Q-tips. But I can't not see that, right?
But you did it.
Right, you did it, and let's all be happy because we're all, and just tell the judge you did it. Maybe they'll give you some mercy.
Right.
And we'll come visit you on Saturdays. I don't know. But so we talked about that. So the parents, and then of course the always when someone denies the murder and you get to put it all to, the police put it all together with their investigation, we'll never truly know the story. But enough of the story was proven with evidence that's pretty horrific. And as a parent of a child, I'm amazed at what her parents did, and kind of with their grief in terms of saying, we need to do something about it. And not only, and that's what I want to talk about real quick, but they started talking to the state legislatures, Congress people, to say there has to be a way for us to alert. And the case was horrific nationwide. I'm sure North Carolina, especially with the university and everything, and everyone was just as shocked. And it was just terrible. It's like your worst fear of anybody's, to be abducted and then murdered in that way. And then it's always insult to injury when it's a young person and they have their whole life ahead of them. And it was just, but so what they did was they have in New Jersey and in North Carolina, they passed Sam's Law, and it enhances the protections for drivers and passengers using the rideshare services. And now they're working on the federal government, and that's going to take longer to get through. I could not imagine. I don't know. I couldn't imagine it. You can't, as a parent, losing your child, let alone to a violent crime. But then the fortitude of somebody who could say, we have to turn this into something that could help other people. Because that's
amazing.
It's amazing. It's like to say through this grief. And then, I mean, we talk about it, and even though talking about true crime the way our show does, or anybody's show, it is a bit of it's not a bit, it's entertainment. It's listed under entertainment. And yet I think most people are drawn to it because of just how unusual it is, and why people do what they do. And so there's plenty of laws that we've had before we even came on this earth that have to do with wrong, the wrongdoing of someone.
Yeah.
And because it's not, so let's give you, it's not just, you shouldn't murder, but you can't do this, or all these extra things that people are charged with. Is that, one murder and there's 15 charges because of all the other things they do between, you can't hide evidence. You can't, hide them in the woods or whichever. So that, but that is a big deal to be able to get to the, so I kind of look at it as that Samantha paid the ultimate price, of course, for us to be safer. And then the parents took it, right? So the parents took it to that, because there's a lot of crimes that happen that someone, I don't know, you'd think there'd be some legislature, or I know there are parents who are trying to push legislation on certain things that might infringe on some rights and others. But it's a tragic happening, and an amazing, something amazing came out of it, which anybody, for all of us who go and do ride sharing, so it's pretty, to have it put into law. Those are good laws that help protect us. But mainly for part 2, like I said, it was going to be short, but it was really just to honor Samantha, her life, and then her legacy, which is Sam's Law, which is amazing. And we'll try to keep bringing stories that talk about not just the victim, and then kind of the intrigue behind the person who perpetrates the crime, and their families and what they're connected to, because it doesn't make sense. And that's why we keep talking about it. We're just trying to figure out how this happens. And then also when we have cases where parents are able to take their grief and create a legacy for their daughter that helps us all. So that's a lot of why I wanted to bring the story to the show, because I'm heartbroken for Nathaniel, who seemed to be having a life like the rest of us. And then something within him said, I need to do this terrible thing. Of course, heartbreaks for Samantha, who won't be on this earth anymore. And then for her parents, who are going to live through this grief for the rest of their lives. But thankful that they took that next step for all of us to be safe. So that is the story, again, honoring Samantha's life and her legacy. So thank you, Jenny, for listening once again to me. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Rita.
Good co-host. All right, you guys. So thanks for watching this show. We've got more stories to come and to share with you. So just join us on our channel. Please subscribe, like if you want. We're getting geared up. Takes a little bit longer because I'm the technical person on this team. So we're having a lot of fun and frustration and gray hair trying to get it all going. But we hope to live stream in the next couple months. So I'm looking forward to that. More so than editing our shows. But thank you for listening, and join us for our next show. Bye. Bye, Jenny.
Bye.